after 5 years old or 6, I didn't really have a role model of a dad in my life like that. It went from he would call and then slowly faded into no calls at all. You know what I mean? I don't know why. Sometimes, things just happen. Dad was there, but then he wasn't. As growing up as a man, it became difficult.
We as a society start to really think about how to remove the grace from our emotions. As men, that's one of the questions that I think we should ask ourselves often is my grace connected to my feelings, or is my grace connected to the grace that is given to me that is unconditional? And if so, how do I disconnect my grace from my feelings and allow it to be predicated on the grace that's given to me unconditional? That was one of the biggest lessons for me as an adult, is to really understand that he is my dad, but my father is God. And I go to him even before I go to my dad. I go to him. That's how I want to condition my son and train my son to understand that you can always come to me, but the answers that I'm going to give you are from a limited perspective. You can always go to God, because the answers that he's going to give you are vast, far greater than anything I can ever think of or imagine. And he has every solution that I don't have. I'm not saying the forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the pain. It just means you're going to be able to release it and release this grip from your future by repaving a blueprint that you're able to give down to your child. Nearly 1 in 4 children in America, around 17.6 million, grow up without a father in the home. That's not just a number, that's a missing presence in the moment that matters the most. It means millions of boys become men without ever learning how to grieve out loud, how to lead through heartbreak, and how to prepare their families for the loss themselves were never taught on how to carry. When fathers are missing, whether by death, distance, silence, or survival, there are lessons left unspoken at your doorstep. And those are the unspoken lessons that show up in the man you must become when tragedy hits. This episode isn't just about fathers' forgiveness and first lessons. It's about what it means to become the man you must become when tragedy hits. It's also about reclaiming the father wounds so it doesn't keep showing up in the generations behind you. This is Legacy Talks, the man you must become. Let's welcome my guest today, Angel Hernandez, a man who is doing the work to break the cycles and building the blueprint for what fatherhood should be. My man, 50 grand.
What's up, brother?
Man, this is interesting because I know that these are a lot of conversations that we often have, off camera. And I guess just for more context, this is not just, my friend. This is my brother, my business partner. This is my family. And I think that, obviously he has been through this process with me in this transition of, going through what I've been going through in this season, which has brought up a lot of just fatherhood, questions and just being a father. And obviously, based upon the statistics that you just heard, like a lot of us didn't and don't have a father going through these times. So we're left to figure out how to actually properly go through this process. I like to just dive right in. So, which obviously we've had these conversations, but let's start here. What was the relationship like with your father growing up?
Ooh, that's a good one. Distant. Let me just say that. The word was distant. Starting off, it was close. He was around. I was probably say he was around till like I was 5. But he ended up moving across state, and it just basically the distance just separated us, so growing up, after 5 years old or 6, I didn't really have a role model of a dad in my life like that. Like, It went from he would call and then slowly faded into no calls at all. You know what I mean? So I don't know why, you know what I mean? But sometimes, things just happen, you know what I mean? But, yeah, that's how it was growing up for me. Dad was there, but then he wasn't. As growing up as a man, it became difficult at some points in my life. Yeah.
I guess everybody has a different perspective and understanding as we do become men. Mm-hmm. And being the father that you are now, do you think that, do you give more grace knowing what it is to be a father and what a father is carrying? Not to say that it's okay, but the grace of really expecting something that he was never actually equipped to actually give you, but it was just based upon an expectation of what we believed we should be getting from a father. But obviously, growing up as minorities, this is something that has been like generational, like passed down of them just not having the knowledge on how to do that, which, I obviously created this deck called the Legacy deck, which is for men to help men become the men who they need to become. And when you get ready to answer this question, this is actually one of the prompts and questions in the cards that we ask ourselves is, what did you need from your father that you never got? And tie that into, I guess, the same question of, what is it that you didn't get? And do you give him the grace knowing kind of how this works now as a father?
That's a good question. Now that I'm a father, I'm a father to a 7-year-old. And the first thing that I had to break or change within myself was becoming my own man and not have to worry about having an example or a role model, because that was what was crippling me growing up. I thought I had to have like this example of somebody that I can look up to and, model that, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't until I got until this age, I think it was like 3 or 4. I'm 38 now, so it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago where I learned that I had abandonment issues. So I had to do the therapy and the work, behind that, just to be able to realize that, hey, I am able to learn and develop my own characters and models to be a man first, And when I had my child, instantly I was like, I'm going to be the best dad I can be. You know what I'm saying? No matter if I don't have an example, I'm going to just be the best dad I can be, which was just being present, So to tie it back to my father, I guess it would be that, like just being present, even if it was a call, a text, something, email, you know what I mean? But I do give him grace. And the only reason I've give grace now, let me say that, the only reason, is because I figured out that it's tough to be a parent just in general. Like, you know what I mean? And if you don't have those tools or even some knowledge, of how to deal with it, that's when you might set up those barriers, or you might have, somebody in the family and his perspective and my father's perspective that might cause blockage at the same time, but that didn't, as an adult now, I would say this, the younger self would not give grace. The man that I am now definitely does, because I had to learn that even though I grew up without a physical father, my spiritual father was always there, meaning like God, what I'm saying? And that within itself has allowed me to give more grace to my physical father, if that makes sense.
It does. And I was holding this thought in because, and you actually kind of alluded to it. And this is just my perspective of how I view dad versus father. Mm-hmm. Our foundation is obviously rooted in Christ. And I'm teaching my son to don't model me as your father, because I'm a flawed man, but I am your dad. And there are responsibilities as your dad to provide, protect, and love and lead, where there comes a point in time where I'm there only to listen and to consult, because you will then make your own decisions. But your heavenly father is there to make sure that you are being led by an example that can continue to guide your footsteps. And I think growing up, we expected a human to be all encompassing of what God is only capable and able to provide. And
Yeah.
we were never taught that, going to church, we were taught that, well, yeah, this is God and he's your heavenly father, but you need to be upset with this man if he's not doing what he's supposed to do. And I'm a prime example. Like, the expectations that I had from my father were expectations that were based upon society and how they put that onto me. But it was never told that he is just a human being. And I know that there's an emotional attachment and love, but I put him over a pedestal higher than I did God. So I was more disappointed in him when he didn't show up, but the things that I was going to him for were the things I should have been going to God for. But there was never any type of foundation laid to know that that was the actual hierarchy. Because even obviously in marriage, it's God, wife, then kids. But in marriage, we still do wife, kids, then God. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons for me as an adult, is to really understand that he is my dad, but my father is God. And I go to him even before I go to my dad. I go to him because that's how I want to condition my son and train my son to understand that you can always come to me, but the answers that I'm going to give you are from a limited perspective. You can always go to God, because the answers that he's going to give you are vast, far greater than anything I can ever think of or imagine. And he has every solution that I don't have. So I think that that's where I agree with you on that. But that was my perspective on that versus the dad and father and kind of what you were talking about.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just thought about, it took me a while to even develop a relationship with God. Now, don't get me wrong. My mother has always been a believer of Jesus Christ and everything. I'll see her pray and all that, but I didn't understand the concept, especially when she was calling God Father. And the reason I didn't understand it was because I didn't see my father. So that affected the relationship that I had with my spirit, with God. I saw God as distant. You get what I'm saying? I didn't see it like, oh, you're near me every time. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, well, my dad's over there living in the East Coast. And, you're supposed to be in the heavens. All right, well, why do I got to work on this relationship? So for many years, that's how it was, that I knew about God. I believed in God, but I never saw him as like close. And it was because of the way I saw my physical father. That affected me, as I developed my own relationship with God. And that took years for me to develop it. And it was through, I guess, seeing certain individuals that I came across, and I started seeing their walk and their relationship. It made me curious to be like, okay, well, let me try this thing. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like that before. Yeah.
No, and that makes sense. And I think it is a process, but I think it's also just a part of the journey, and getting the things that we need. Everybody's path to developing and getting that information. But he says, if you seek, you will find, and if you knock, I will answer. So I want to talk about loss. Firsthand, I know that loss obviously comes without a blueprint, and grief is one of life's greatest teachers. But most men, we were never taught how to sit with it. So let's talk about a time when you had to be strong, or when you didn't feel strong and you had to be strong in the midst of dealing with a tragedy or a loss in your family. I mean, it can be a mortality loss, or let's just talk about the loss of the relationship of your father. Because I think that when it comes to preparing yourself for loss and tragedies, like that loss can be something that happens from a physical or from a emotional, standpoint as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, because I haven't experienced that the mortality one. Well, let me take that back. I think the only time where I allowed myself to grieve, because every time it was something, it was like either an uncle passed or an auntie passed, and you know, I was close to them, but at the same time, it was like they were older in age, so it was kind of like expected. You know what I'm saying? But the one that did affect me the most growing up was well, not growing up. I was already like I think 26, 27 when it happened. Was when because it was a desire of me to connect with my father's side of the family, even though if he was there or not. I just desired it to connect with them. You know what I'm saying? So that actually happened when I was 26. Like my father found me via Facebook. The beautiful thing about, social media.
yeah.
And I got to experience this two types of grief during that period. One was I was excited because my dad found me. But at the same time, I got emotional because I was just like, dang, I was 5 and I'm 26 now. Like, dude, I don't need you now, just like I didn't need you growing up. That was the first part of my emotion. That was me allowing myself to express my emotions because I needed to get it out. You know what I'm saying? And this is what occurred. I did that and my dad became distant again.
Yeah.
He became distant again from me expressing how I felt, and that's all I said. All I said was like, "Hey, man, like," because he was like, "You don't call me, you don't this and that." When we reconnected, I was like, "Hey, like, I don't have to. I can. I'm gonna reach out when I'm able to, but you can't force me to connect with you daily. Like, you know what I mean?" And I had to once I said what I said to him, and he caused himself to separate, become distant again. That's when the grief started again. I was like, oh man, like he came around. I thought I could be open with him, express express myself, and not in a, but I guess he took it as me being I don't know. He just took it. He took it a different way. Instead of me being just open and vulnerable, he took it like I was trying to punish him or something, for not being around in my youth. But that one hit me because I remember I started regular reaching out. And I was like, hey man, what's going on? We were talking, and all of a sudden it could be 3-4 months, and you don't reach out again, And then he was like, what did he say? I didn't realize that he was going through a medical condition during that time period, and I was like, but we were having a moment of transparency and vulnerability. So the fact that, he got convicted from what I said, because that's basically what happened. He felt some kind of way. He eventually told me, yeah, the reason was because I was recovering from colon cancer, and I just needed to minimize the stress. Now, at this point, I chose not to get offended because at the same time, you're going through what you're going through, but if you still want to develop those relationships with people you genuinely consider you love, you will make the effort no matter what you're going through. You know what I'm saying? But that didn't occur.
So I wanna sit here for a while because there's some things that I have some perspectives on this based upon my experience.
Right.
So I think that there's this expectation, and it's crazy because you are my daughter,
Yeah.
and my daughter's expectation of how I should be as a father and how I should be showing up, which in this time frame, since my wife, in the last 10 years, because my daughter's 23 now, it hasn't changed, but there's an expectation of still having to show up in a season that is one of the hardest seasons that I hope that I ever have to go through.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they understand, she doesn't understand the effort that I am making based upon the capacity and ability that I have to make the effort. But then
Right.
I had to understand that when it comes to her awareness of the situation, her understanding of the situation, it was very hard for her to detach her feelings from the situation. And that continued to be the driver of the disconnect and the wedge in our relationship. And I
Yeah.
think that, with your dad and him going through that, and once again, we've had these like we've talked about this when it comes to the knowledge of fatherhood and what they're carrying, like just the grace that we have to be able to give him is something that it's hard for people to detach grace from emotions. Like their grace is tied to their feelings versus grace is tied to a principle that you live by, because we get our grace from God, which is unconditional, but the grace that we give is conditioned based upon our feelings. And I think it's
Yeah.
hard for us as people and humans to disconnect that. So I think, in that moment, like I understand both sides. Like I understand your side and I understand his side because I was living in his side, and
Right.
then I was living in your side, which even with my mom, and I talked about this in another episode, like,
Yeah.
my mom, it's been 2 years. She still hasn't came and stayed with me. But I still give her grace because although I'm going through what I'm going through, I don't know what exactly it is that she's going through and what she's carrying. And I have to remove my emotions from that and know that this is God's plan. And when it's time for her to come, it'll be time for her to come. So, I guess the fork in the cake is we as a society have to start to really think about how to remove the grace from our emotions, because when things do happen and when tragedies do happen, there's going to be a lot of grace that you're going to have to give for a lot of
Yeah.
people. A lot of people. I'm having to give grace to a lot of people in this situation. And I think, as men, that's one of the questions that I think we should ask ourselves often is my grace connected to my feelings, or is my grace connected to the grace that is given to me that is unconditional? And if so, how do I disconnect my grace from my feelings and allow it to be predicated on the grace that's given to me unconditional? But yeah, that was, it resonated with me as you were talking about that, which, kind of goes into the next thing is forgiveness and rebuilding and repairing. So, well, have you had a real conversation with your father about who you needed him to be?
No. And the reason is because, I reach out, or I'll call him and text. He won't return the calls, you know what I mean? Or he won't. Recently he started. But after that certain conversation around, when I was like 27 or whatever, and I told you he became more distant, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted to build the relationship, but, hey, you got to do what you got to do. He was going through what he was going through. And then, I would send him messages here and there, call him, and then, he just wouldn't call back. So in recent years now, he's making the effort to call and text, but I think it's more to connect with my daughter because he's missing, you know what I'm saying? Like seeing her grow. Like she's 7 now, you know what I'm saying? And I tried to mend that conversation that we had before. And I remember telling him like, hey, I know what happened, what else happened. You know what I'm saying? Like you're my dad, and that doesn't change anything. That was me. Like, I actually had a conversation with him about this, and I was like, I'm about to be a father. And this is before Mia was even born. My wife was pregnant. It's like, and I would love if somehow, some way you can, be a part of your granddaughter's life. You know what I'm saying? I'm just extending that to you. But hey, I can only, what is the saying that you tell me, Jason? You can walk them to the lake, but you can't force them to drink the water.
That is true.
So that's genuinely, I'm here, bro. I'm here. And that's how it's been. So, we slowly, even to this day, we slowly been working at, he texts me and calls me here and there. I'll send him pictures of my daughter. He's like, oh, she looks so beautiful. So he's working. He's giving the best he can. And that's what I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Cause Amelia asks, she's 7. She asks almost every year, like, yo, when can I meet your dad? And I'm like, you'll meet him one day.
Because how often do you reach out to him and talk to him?
Probably been like 1 or twice a month. Yeah.
So here's a lesson that I learned, is that you get to a place in life and you get to an age where, and it all goes back to the emotional maturity that we have to develop into. Because you reaching out to your dad and him being distant or being a little standoffish or cold or not ready to engage, like, that's still affecting you from an emotional standpoint.
Right.
But what you have to now change your perspective to is, and you're right, the saying that I said, you can lead a horse to the lake, but you can't make him drink. But you get to a certain place where you realize leading that horse to that lake, even if they don't drink, there's lessons along that path and journey that you are having to learn that's going to be predicated on the horse. When it has a baby, you have to lead them to the lake. And it's the same thing with your daughter. What you're doing now is you are preparing and showing your daughter how to break cycles and how to, and you are laying a blueprint on how to operate regardless of the other person. And these are things that when she looks back, she's going to say, despite how my dad's father was with him, this is how he showed up continuously. And I got to continuously see him show up.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that, like, that's part of, like, because we're not going to always have this ability to teach that.
Yeah.
And we won't always, and he may not always be here to be that lake to bring the horse to. So there's that part of it as we get older where we remove our emotions from it and realize that it's more about what I'm able to break as a generational cycle and build a new blueprint versus what I can get from it from an emotional standpoint. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the pain. It just means you're going to be able to release it and release its grip from your future by repaving a blueprint that you're able to give down to your child. So when she has a husband and he's having to carry this, she has that wisdom that was given from her father to be able to pass down to him because of the example that was set.
Right.
And these are the questions that, we have to ask ourselves to prepare, because this is a question you're going to ask, like, did I do everything that I could do to change and break the cycles now that my father's not here? Did I have every conversation that I wanted to have with him now that my father's not here? Was I able to take away the lessons to change the things or heal the things in me to become the man that I need to be to stand in the gap for when I have to then carry a loss or a transition to be available? Because that's the thing, like, him going through what he's going through and him being a state, like, it's obviously a teacher that's put in front of us, but the saying that the teacher will come when the student is ready. The teacher will appear when the student is ready. And I would say that regardless of the relationship that you have with him, like, you are grateful still to have him here.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because there's lessons that are built in him that you have to learn how to abstract from love, from grace, from wisdom, that are predicated on you building a new foundation, because my dad passed away from dementia, and he was a treasure chest. I didn't have the emotional maturity because I was so young to extract that information. And now I just look back at what he was carrying as a man and what he was doing. And I wish I could have went and just sat by his bed and just asked him every single question, regardless of his responses, every single question in a note, because all of that information that he has, like that's wisdom that he has that gives you the ability to then make different decisions. So I just encourage you to continue to create a blueprint that is going to give you the foundation to break the cycles, and two, create questions to go talk to him about so you can actually extract that information and then figure out how to take. So this is crazy. And you know this, you can literally take the questions. I would write out the questions and then go to him. I would get a plaid pen, record it, ask him the questions, take the plaid pen, take your responses from those questions, upload it in ChatGPT, and say, can you give me a full breakdown of an emotional, mental state of why this possibly took place, analyze how he was feeling from his tones, and it will literally spit out a breakdown of the whole situation. Because I've been literally using it as a business and personal coach, and it has literally broke down my life and gave me some really good directions and steps and questions and mantras to start asking myself. But yeah, that was just what I would, from listening to what you were saying, that's just what's on my heart. Because I just don't think that us as men, we don't have the ability to ask those questions, because he's dealt with loss. He's dealt with and that's another thing too, asking him, how did you handle at the age that you're at facing a potential terminally ill disease? Like, how did you stay strong? How did you stay those are those questions that you were able to get that information and bring back. So, but I don't know. I mean, I just be rambling, but
no, what I am grateful for though, even though is me continuously trying to connect with him and things, is that I've been able to connect with other members on his side of his family, with my aunts, with my grandfather who's 90 years old. I went to go celebrate his life earlier this year. I've been developing a great relationship with him, been asking him questions and talking to him. So it's, it's developed some other things, and it's brought some other people that at the moment are in the right spot in the right season. I am grateful to have him, and I am going to continue to reach out to him as much as I can. And then hopefully he one day just, opens up, because he's in a different country right now. He's not even nearby. So it's like all we can do is call and talk. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I would love to be able to see him in person, but we'll see.
So I want to ask you one question in closing. And I want to get practical on this one. How do you begin preparing your family for the what if? Emotional, spiritually, and practical. So let's from an emotional standpoint, and is this something have you actually thought about? I mean, obviously you've been around me for a while now and seeing the seasons. So I don't know if thought has gone through your head or if you've thought about the conversations, but how do you begin to prepare your family for the what if in those three areas?
We have had some of these conversations, especially seeing your journey. I got to experience what you went through just by being supported. Support you is the best ability that I was able to. So I saw you go through a lot, you know what I'm saying? So it was like just from having conversations with you, it was like a learning experience. You know what I mean? So as far as for my daughter, the what if conversation hasn't really, she's young, but she has experienced grief. She lost her dog, when the first dog that we got her. So, and still to this day, she's like, she'll get teary about it here and there. And it was funny because we were actually watching a movie yesterday, and it was about a dog, and she didn't want to watch it, because she thought something was going to happen to the dog. And I was just like, not every dog story has a bad ending.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, these are the conversations I have with my 7-year-old. This is the type of stuff like.
It's actually a ball.
Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying?
It's a bad ending.
Yeah, I was like, unfortunately, the one we had did, but it was not your fault. It was not Daddy's fault. It's just, it just happened. But you have a dog that's really strong right now, and so she was just like, oh, okay, and then she got the courage to watch the movie. But
what conversations have you had with Maya?
With Maya, that one's you already know. No, I'm just kidding. But
in regards to the family, what and what if happens, man? That's a different podcast, man.
I know that's a whole different podcast.
That's an after
with
dark
Maya,
podcast, man.
Yeah, with Maya, it's really been us sitting down and really just planning out our future, how that looks. That's the conversations we've been having, because I told her, hey, we can't work forever. We gonna get to a point where we have to retire or have something that we can retire on, or if something happens to me, or something happens to you, what's the plan? So we are still in conversations of that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked her, in my absence, are you prepared to, and then vice versa? Like, have you ever asked each other, in your absence, are you prepared to walk on this journey with you and Amia, and vice versa? Mm-hmm. And, I'm even about to go even deeper. Because I know obviously family dynamics are wild. And, have you ever asked her, and vice versa? I mean, both, like, both of y'all families, like, when it comes to the power of attorney for your medical, like, have you ever asked, what are some of the things in your expectations for when this happens, and how you would want me to communicate to your family, and vice versa? Because those are the type of conversations that, as men, like, even if she doesn't know, you have to set the foundation and say, as your medical power of attorney, which that's a whole nother conversation. I don't believe spouses should be medical power of attorneys at all. I think that a medical power of attorney should be someone who understands someone who can stand in the gap and understands your wishes, but can then get the information from the doctors and then respond in a non-emotional state and be able to communicate that to the family members. Because I don't think people understand how much weight that a person has to carry. And I know, because I had to do it. I had a newborn, my daughter, her family, my family. I'm dealing with doctors in North Carolina. I'm dealing with surgeons. I'm dealing with, like, all of these people. Her mom and her grandma are standing in front of me, and they're thinking that they're going to be making decisions. And the doctor's like, ma'am, unfortunately, the husband is the next of kin, and he has to make the decisions. And I can tell you this, like, I don't think that you understand, because most people don't understand.
Yeah.
But when you get to a place where, God forbids, you or her become incapacitated, like, you are the one that has to make the decision, or whether, depending on if the circumstances is an irreversible circumstances, such as my wife's, like, you have to make the decision whether she lives or dies.
Yeah.
And those are the type of rough and hard conversations that, like, should be had in the household. So when it is presented in the doctor's office, because this was in a hallway. Like, we sitting in a hallway, and her mom and grandma are standing in front of me, and they're like, do you have a do not resuscitate order in place? And I was like, no, I don't. And the doctor was like, this is my medical. So her doctor was like, this is my medical recommendation. And he was right based upon, because me trying to revive her was not going to give her the life that she wanted. But I'm having to say this in front of her grandmother and her mother, where I'm saying, if she flatlines, do not bring her back. And they're looking at me like, where the gun? Let me get somebody get the gun. Somebody get the gun. So those are the conversations that I think that you need to be able to prepare her for. And those are the situations that you need to be able to prepare her for, because in that moment, financially, none of that matters. Yeah. None of that matters, because the hard conversations that have to be had, like, those are the conversations about, and then also too, I think communicating to her, like, how do you want to be remembered as a man? How do you want to be remembered as a father? What are key principles and things that you want to pass down in your absence, that if you were not here and you had to pass it down to Amia, how do I want this? Because you know that you are going to word things a specific way, and there's an idea of how you want things to be done, just based upon us knowing each other. And there may be a disconnect in, it doesn't matter if you understand it or if she understands it or not. These are your wishes, and these wishes have been clearly stated and written out, so it's able to be communicated effectively, so she can then walk still in your guidance in your absence. And that's what I mean by, and that's from an emotional standpoint, because as you're going through this emotional journey, there's emotional things that you just want to give her to be able to know from your voice. Spiritually, you want to give her spiritual advice, even from how we talked about father versus dad, and then practical things, which obviously we talk about from the financial standpoint of how to practically prepare our kids and families in our losses. So that's what I meant by, those questions. But I know that those questions are heavy and I know that I know I did a flip floppy on you. This was just dropped into me. This was literally dropped into me last minute. And I was just told to switch it up. And I'm grateful that, like, these are the tough and rough conversations that I want to be able to give. So as I land this plane, I don't know if you had anything else to add to that.
I will say, like, those conversations are tough, and like I mentioned earlier, I've learned from just watching you and experience and learn from what you went through. You know what I mean? So when those conversations are being had, I just know that my other half isn't prepared, especially from the answer that I might get. I might get like, oh, don't say that. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, well, we'll gently get to the point where we can have that conversation. That's just the approach that I have to do with who I'm with. Let's just say that, And I think because everybody receives information differently. And trust me, if it was me, I would kick down the door and be like, yo, we got to talk about this now. We got to talk it now and sit down and talk about it now.
So I am going to say this though. It is you. And I'm saying this I'm the Marty McFly. I mean, I'm the Biff in Back to the Future, and I'm going back and talking to myself. This is you. And I promise you, no matter how hard the conversation is, as men, we are the head, and it's up to us to create the infrastructure, foundation, and the roadmap. And in your absence, legacy starts from conversations. And chaos is started in silence. So it is up to you, no matter how comfortable it is, to have those conversations. But I think that what's most important for you is to start having these conversations with yourself. Yeah. And having the ability to really talk through these questions with yourself, because I think that it does create this difference of a stigma or dynamic when you're not clear and you're wanting them to be clear and no one's clear. And that's why when it comes to the man you must become, understanding the man you must become and then be able to communicate that to your spouse, I think it's going to create a safer space where she sees that you have prepared a way for her to still stand in the gap when you're not here in your absence. And I think that is going to create the framework for her. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I first of all want to say thank you, brother, for what you shared today. I know that is definitely going to resonate with men who are in the same process of becoming the man they need to become in the absence of a father, and learning how to do that. I think that is something that we're all learning how to do. And to every man listening, you don't have to carry it all by yourself, and you don't have to stay silent to be strong. You could become what you never received. You can break the silence, and you can build legacy that looks nothing like what you inherited, and everything like what you wish you had. I'm going to leave you guys with 3 questions that are from the When Would Have Happen's men's game. And you take these 3 questions, as I always say, sit down with these 3 questions and really sit with them and allow them to create the framework to start asking yourself these questions so you can start to become this man. So the first question is going to be, what part of your father's story are you still carrying? The second question would be, what honest conversations are still missing in your household? And the third question is going to be, what do you want your children or your family to feel in the moment they look to you for strength? And I think that those are 3 questions that help shape who we are becoming to better communicate the legacy we want to live. So, Angel, where can people find you at? And also let them know about your podcast as well. So yeah, where can people find you at?
I'm on Instagram, Angel J Hernandez _ It's my Instagram name. And then my podcast is called Build Within Podcast. So it's Build Within _ podcast. And also on Instagram, and that's on YouTube and all the other platforms as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys connecting with us again. And just remember that legacy is built on conversations and chaos is built on silence. I look forward to connecting with you guys again. Please like and subscribe and share this video to anyone that you think needs to start to understand how to prepare themselves, or even if they're in the midst of going through something, please share this video with them. I think that this is going to be a great foundation for them to start, but please like and share, and we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. Peace.